Oh, I think now we can start. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you today to this panel discussion entitled Music, Film and Art from Africa to the World, Globalization of African Urban Culture. My name is Jeannot Moukouri Ekobe, PhD in postcolonial literature and particularly interested in what has been called since Stuart Hall and Paul DeRoy, the Black urban culture. With me tonight is an incredible panel composed of the very people who are profoundly influencing the arts and on the continent. The first guest comes from the diaspora in the sense of the Black Atlantic. She will tell us later how she identifies herself. Kim Poole is a soul fusion performing artist and founding fellow of the Teaching Artists Institute. Good evening, Kim, and welcome. Can you tell us in a few words who you are?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, and thank you all for hosting this incredible event. Made in Africa is everything, everywhere. We are at the cradle of civilization, and so I'm an artist, founder of the Teaching Artists Institute, and I'm interested in teaching artists to include an element of their art into every sector of development. So our organization is focused on art for social transformation. So finding solutions and resources for creating the communities that we need. So yeah, that's what we do as artists, and I look forward to sharing more.
Thank you, Kim. My second guest comes from South Africa and Congo. Marleyne Bandekele is a spoken word poet, professional voiceover artist, and Afrobeat dancer. Good evening, Marleyne.
Good evening. Good evening.
I must say that I was on your website, and I mean, in order to hear your voice is very incredible.
Thank you so much.
What does that mean, professional voiceover artist?
Mm-hmm.
What is that? A professional voiceover artist. What does a professional voiceover artist do?
Oh, okay. So, for example, right now, my main project is doing voiceovers for adverts. So I'm in partnership with a business called Fix It. And so when they want me to basically tell people about the company, I do a voiceover for it and I tell people about that using my voice. So I'll be like, welcome to Fix It, join the club type of thing. And that's where I'm at. That's the voiceover industry that I'm in. So yes.
I told you that she has an incredible voice. I mean,
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marleyne. The third guest is Daron Bandeira. He is a Berlin and Zanzibar-based freelance photographer, art director, and curator, specializing primarily in visual works, focus on fashion, lifestyle, travel, and commercial. Good evening, Daron.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm fine. I've seen on your website that you were everywhere in Africa, but not in Cameroon. Do you have a problem?
Yes.
I'm coming from Cameroon.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of time before I get into Cameroon. But I've actually been close to the border for a bit. Okay. So yeah, a matter of time, I guess.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your work in Berlin, in Zanzibar, in everywhere, on the continent where you went?
Definitely. So my name is Daron. I'm a photographer, curator, and art director. I've been traveling the last 10 years to different African countries, creating content with locals. So basically, I go to a particular country and then I find the people that are in the creative arts, and then we create an editorial together for a fashion brand or or for a documentary. So this is what I've been doing. I created a company called Afrofuturism, which was founded 8 years ago to support African arts. So it serves as an agency and then a magazine. The idea was to create the first in-flight magazine, which would tell you the creatives that you can work with in Africa. So not necessarily, so not just to know about the hotels in Africa, but also creatives that you can book and work with when you're going to the continent. So then you are actually supporting Made in Africa, but the creative side of things. So this is what I've done over the last few years. And now I'm in Germany, which actually is a city that supports art. And I'm looking to see how I can integrate these and my experiences here.
Wow, this is amazing. Our last guest, so we are waiting for two more guests, but our last guest now is Ytasha Womack. Sorry, I have this German pronunciation in my Womack. Is based in Chicago, USA. She writes and teaches about Afrofuturism. Afrofuturism sounds very difficult. Ytasha, what is the Afrofuturism?
No, everyone, all cultures around the world have a relationship to their own future. And Afrofuturism is a way of looking at the future or alternate realities, but you're doing so from an African diasporic perspective. And, you know, clearly we have an array of cultures, but if you take any of those lenses and you think about time and space and our relationship to time and space from those cultural moments, in short, that's Afrofuturism. But, you know, it's an artistic aesthetic. It's a way of looking at the world. It's a practice. It's a method. And, you know, people see it in Black Panther. You see it in, you think about Janelle Monáe, you think about, you know, remixing, you know, a lot of the drumming patterns. All of these things are relationships to time and space. And I just like talking about speculative fiction and encouraging people to think about the role of the imagination in transforming, you know, our circumstances and thinking about the arts from that standpoint as a lens to talk about futures.
Thank you very much, Ytasha. I think we will have a very, very great discussion with all those people and smart people, people who already have achieved a lot, not only in theory, but also in the practice. We now come to the heart of the matter. I will first like to remind you of the problematic of our discussion. The central question is, can art and artists be catalysts for building a positive image of the continent? I mean, and more powerful than the politics and politic himself. In the first part, we'll discuss the influence of art on reality in general. In the second part, we will bring the discussion to the practical level. Each of you will be invited to explain how the product, how the art can transform the image of Africa, which is so far quite negative in the world. The third and final part of our discussion will focus on the business side of art. Meanwhile, the public can just write the question. I hope everything is fine so far. Okay, let us move now to part one, art and his influence on reality. We have here, I mean, all of you, I think, have an idea, a proper idea about the role, the relationship between art and the reality. And I will just ask this introducing question like that. How can art impact on the reality, just in general? Maybe we'll start with Poole, because she's a scholar, and I think she also writes paper in theory about the role of art in and the relationship between art and reality. Or maybe Ytasha with Afrofuturism.
Sure. Well, it's interesting. Art is a part of life. It's like breathing. It's, we understand our relationship to our own humanity through the arts that we create. So I don't see there being some fine line between art and reality, in the sense that art expresses, our art is a reflection of how we see the world. It's an articulation of how we interact with the world. It's an articulation of how we fantasize things that we want. And it's also a way of kind of preserving the culture or sharing history, particularly when I think about the African diaspora cultures, so much of our history before things, we sort of transferred into the written language, was transferred through the singing, through the dance, through a lot of the artistic aspects of the culture. So, in that sense, art is a reality, and the space that we create through the practice of it is a reality, one that is very interdimensional in many ways. And it's an interesting philosophy and relationship to yourself and the world around you through practicing the arts, just the practice itself. This is outside of the vision and the story you're trying to create. But then when you're creating these stories, these people in the world interact with these stories. They interact with these films, they interact with the music, and then their lives are changed. So, I see art and reality as being sort of this symbiotic relationship. It's not this binary dynamic where art's here and reality's over here, and hey, let's find a middle ground. The fabric is very much integrated, and I think, generally speaking, our cultures understand that.
Yeah, thank you. I found the point very interesting to talk about art as a reality. I don't know what the other participants think about this. I mean, I just catch this sentence because I find it very, very, very hard, very. Maybe someone else wants to react about it.
I think in general, like, art is in our everyday living space, like even from the start of time. For example, if you look at the ocean and you see how the waves do move, this is artistic, and these are things that is in nature, and that's what we've taken from to influence our day-to-day lives today. This is what we've learned from the things that we see to be able to influence our lives today. And art is it is not a fantasy. It's actually part of our living, like our everyday lives. Like, for example, our African forefathers used to tell us stories to guide us, to make us know how to operate in life, or how to be good, or how to be disciplined. And then it was a form of art in terms of poetry, right? That they used to give us to make sure that we can live a good life, and then that discipline us throughout. So I feel like there's no separation. It's more like it's more like art has developed now into like different forms, and that's why you might think that some form of art is unreal. I think that's what I would add.
Yeah, very interesting. Marleyne, you have been doing. I mean, you do quite everything what we call art. I mean, you write poems, you sing, you dance, and that's everything. It will be also interesting to know what you think. So in general about this relationship between art and reality.
Yeah. Now, as mentioned before, I believe that art is an expression of life. who we are today is as a result of art. So even what artists display is they draw from the society, they draw from people. So as it was mentioned before, I don't even think you can split the two, because who we are today is as a result of our surroundings. And what influences people mostly, I think, is in the arts industry. We learn and we teach through art. So I would say that art is a reality. And the moment we as artists understand that, even the importance we place on the messages that we give, we know that it controls and influences people's lives in general. So that's what I believe about this topic of art and reality. Yeah.
Poole, you have been teaching all those things, art, reality, and the other participants that they are saying. I mean, quite everybody here are saying that art is reality. Is that the same thing in the institute for art and in your institute?
Absolutely. Everybody has said really incredible things, and I've learned in spaces when to step up and when to take a step back. And so I love hearing that everybody said everything that is already necessary, because I think we kind of already as artists know that we define reality. And though the society in general doesn't really value us in that way, internally, we already understand our value in the space. And so I appreciate them, my fellow panelists saying that. And I think it's important that we begin as artists to remind every sector in society of the fact that we are teaching the art of possibility, that we are teaching innovation and design and creativity. So as artists define reality with the content of their art and the genres of the art, I want us to also consider the fact that we teach other sectors how to think. Artists are not one of the sectors at the table. We're not one of the subjects at schools that you study. We are every subject at school. We are the pedagogy. We are how everybody learns. What would we know about ourselves if not for stories? My other brother, he mentioned the griot and how the griot in the African village historically was the historian. They held the history of the story. They taught us about identity shaping and values and helped us to cultivate character within our youth. And so that type of functionality is just one example of how artists in general define reality, because our reality is based in our history, and it, like my other sister said, defines our future. And so artists are not just defining the reality of now, they're deciding what the reality looks like for tomorrow. And so that's what the Teaching Artists Institute would contribute to our role in reality shaping.
Oh, that is amazing. That is really amazing. Before maybe moving to the practical part of our discussion, just wanted to maybe draw the attention to a specific example with Nollywood and Afrobeat. Do you think that, I mean, especially coming from Nigeria, do you think that with the emergence of Nollywood and Afrobeat, I mean, with Burna Boy and all those great artists, young artists from Nigeria, do you think that they contributed to create a new way of seeing Africa? Maybe we take a Kim Poole, because she was the last to talk.
Okay, sure. So first and foremost, absolutely, Nigeria is the largest economy in Africa, and they're the most populous African country as well. And so when you talk about Nollywood and artists defining reality, think of how much reflection that is. It's so important in art that you see yourself and that you see your story, because that perpetuates the narrative. It helps to keep it going. And so Nollywood is, for once, telling the story of the girl in the African village. I think about young artists like Simi, and you know how she uses the broken Yoruba that they use slang in, you know, Lagos and Maryland, and how I hear that in her music. She's telling their story in her songs, and how many girls can relate to that? I mean, it's millions of them. I also think about how Nollywood is defining the narrative on the screen and providing a market for jobs and ownership for so many African owners in the US. When I think about the history of artists aren't usually in ownership of the platform. They're the hired help. They come in, they do a great show, but people that make the money are the ones that own the record labels, the ones that own the radio station. So all of the conveners and the connectors, and the artists, they're being used like commodities in the trade, in the music business, as an example, in the theater industry. And so when I look at Nollywood and when I think about the artists that are in the cinema, they're providing opportunities for artists to eat and eat well of African descent for once in our history. And so I love what they're doing. Keep going, Nigeria, making us all proud.
Nigeria make me also very, very proud. I'm very proud from Nigeria. I want to, because I think I find it very interesting, because I think you said that an industry such as Nollywood and the music industry in Nigeria transform the reality, not only on a symbolical level, but also on a practical level. I mean, people can now eat from music. They can rent their houses from music. And also from movies. Ytasha, Womack, you live in the US. I mean, both of you are living in the US, and we know all the great impact of now Hollywood on the construction of this American image. Do you think that the American image in the world? Do you think that we in Africa and elsewhere, Afro-descendant people, that we will be able to build such a great and solid industry such as Hollywood, in terms of transforming this narrative of Africa in the world?
You know, it's interesting because so much of how people think they know Africa or people of African descent is not based so much on their interactions, but based on what they see in film, you know, or what they've heard in news or what they've heard in media. And all of these are entities that are created. For some people, their introduction to Nigerian culture is literally through the Afrobeat scene that was just created, you know, or through those films. So I find it almost rather fascinating that so much of our engagement as human beings is based on the films, the media that we kind of consume, even to the point where people define their relationships with one another. They'll take the reality of a film and hold that above their own interactions in their neighborhood. Like what happened in the film is more real than the experiences they've had with their own neighbors. And so that goes to show that there is a real influence, that stories are powerful and the images associated with them are powerful. And a lot of the challenge or opportunity that people of color have had to push for, you know, Black people around the world, has been around telling their own stories, you know, through film, music, otherwise. Music transcended probably a little faster than some of the other art forms for a lot of reasons. Music was commercialized faster globally, I think, than maybe film in some other areas. And there's a whole politics and story around that. But I think for when you think about, just these industries and the power of story, the thing to remember is that everyone needs to tell their stories. Everyone needs to feel supported in telling those stories and create industries or utilize opportunities where there are none. So even within the US, for people of African descent who are creating here, there's way more opportunity to tell stories and get them out into the world, even being American in the US than there was previously, which is very fascinating. And a lot of that just has to do with the technologies, the fact that we have more streaming opportunities. There's a demand for content, but there's also a demand for Black cultural insights, because oftentimes the creations that come out of Black cultures are seen as being articulations of what's next. So almost as if we're kind of seen as like trendsetters, for better or worse. And I think a lot of times in our culture, we're constantly creating new things, sometimes because the society demands it, sometimes because in order to thrive, you have to keep creating something new. But I think the other part is that culturally, we're constantly creating, which is unique, because there's some cultural, dynamics where everybody's not always creating something. They're not always creating something new. There's not an expectation to create something new. And so when I think about sort of this larger scene, and you're talking about, Hollywood or, platforms for it, I think it's recognized that there's a lot of impetus to have new approaches, innovative approaches, whether it's forced by, challenging dynamics, that's just sort of merged with something we'd be doing. And there's a recognition that there's an insight into what's going to happen in the future around our collective approaches to storytelling. And I just think that's something for us to keep in mind, to always value what we're doing, even when we feel like we're in spaces where it's not valued. To know that what you're doing, you might be ahead of a curve, and to sort of embrace that relationship.
Yeah, thank you very much. The thing is that when when you guys are talking, I mean, the lines are very fine, the sentence, I just want to write everything that you are saying, because it's very, for example, this line about stories are powerful, telling, it's about to tell our own stories. And that is interesting because we have someone among us here who works with a voice, and I think it should resound very particularly for Marleyne when she heard about a sentence like a story are powerful, you must tell your own story. Marleyne, do you think it's necessary to to create new narrative, but maybe this time only telling by different people, because of the we could say that Hollywood has already do quite everything. Do you think it's necessary that people like you come now and try to tell their own story? That's the question.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean, and that's actually a very important question. Just before I answer that, I feel like with regards to the Nollywood and what Afrobeats is doing is they've basically expanded the stage for Africa, because in Africa, it has always been a case where we are very gifted. We have so many diverse cultures and there's so much that we can do, but no one really saw that. And someone once said, his name was Miles Monroe, he said that the only reason someone is poor is because they don't know about you. And so what these people have done is they've created a wider stage for us. And now going back to storytelling, the truth is no one can tell your story the way you can. So wherever you are, there's a story that you can take from there and teach and bless someone else with it. No one can say it the way you can. No one can write it the way you can, you know? And that's why I believe so much in sharing my story, my personal story, and those of other people around me, because of the fact that we can learn from these things. Yes, in the Nigerian, in the aspect of the Nigerian embassy going forward, the artistic side going forward, yes, that is good, but they're just creating a way for us to tell our story as well, because it's powerful. Each story is different, and someone might only listen to you because you said it, or the next person because they said it. So each person understanding that and embracing the value of their own story is what will make the difference. So as a poet, I believe in that so much. I believe in the power of the voice. You know, I believe in the power of words and the influence that it has. Like my sister said earlier before, stories form us, you know, it builds us. That's where we learn. And so once you understand and identify your own voice and the value that you have and that you can give to the next person, even the way you'll do it will be different. And people will be blessed from that. And especially when it's your own story, it's authentic, it's real. People react to when people are genuine, you know what I'm saying? So all in all, I believe that each person should thrive to say their story in their own way, because you don't know whose life you can bless with that. And no one, and I say no one, can do it like you can. And I believe that as artists, when we understand that, it makes the difference. So that's what I think.
Thank you very much. I totally agree with you, with what all of you have said. But I did my, how you said it, I was in the university, it was in Germany. And I would say that the context is a little bit different, and also the content of our content is also different. And sometimes you have from some professor, you have those sentence like literature or art in general doesn't have a color. That you don't need to have a black character in your novel to make it universal. It's not necessary that the author, it's not necessary that the author come from this specific place to tell a universal story. There is really this debate about if it is really necessary that the author that the author should be black, and if the author should be white, and also reacting to this polemic in the US with this young poet and his translation in I think that was in the Netherlands, that people was telling that the translator shouldn't be. It's not necessary that the translator should be a black as the author. There's really this debate about how you can I phrase it, about the origin of the author. Daron, do you think, because you also you worked on visual, do you think it's necessary to have, for example, a specific character in a novel, specific character in photography?
I think before I answer this question, I'm going to go back to your first question, because something was said that I want to kind of correct quite well. So everything currently is Africa first. I want us to keep that notion in mind. If I say everything currently is Africa first, means that Nollywood was doing really well and is doing really well for Africans already. Gollywood, which is in Ghana, is doing well in Africa for Africans already. Music in Africa is doing well for Africans already. Photographers in Africa, let's say Malik Sidibe, all those ones from Senegal, they've done so well for themselves in Africa already. What is happening now is that the world is discovering what they missed out on, and they are copying it. That is what is happening now. I wouldn't say maybe copy is such a strong word, but this is what is happening now. Because the reason why I'm saying this is that, let's start from, let's say, Black Panther, right? Even the visuals in Black Panther, from the kind of looks that they put on the people, from the hairstyle to the clothes to the last, every single thing has already been in where? Nollywood. That's an example. It's just been remodified and reimagined to look new. So I feel like that concept needs to, that concept and that idea that Africa is actually looking up to the US and Hollywood should actually be the opposite. It should be that now they've run out of ideas and now they are taking ideas from us. This is what I would say. And then to answer your question now, the thing is that we as Africans have to push to have more actors like us in the industry. Recently moved to Germany, right? And then for me, I'm here to be a great photographer in Germany. To be able to achieve that, I need a lot of African players, not just African players, but like people like me or people that would give us chances working in different places to be able to give me those opportunities. So I'm talking about curators, moderators. I need actors to be booking me. I want people like me in there would recognize me. People that also want to support Black community would also support us because they are in there. So I feel like it's very, very important for us to have players like these in every field, from writing to film, that are able to bring us through. Because for me, living and growing in Africa, I feel like I have already accumulated enough knowledge to share with the world of the craft. So this relates to my the first question that I answered. Because I know Africa well, I can come to Europe and I can strive, because the concept that Europe is producing now is based on what is produced in Africa. I hope you get the link up now from that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Does someone want to react about what Daron just said? Yeah, Ytasha?
Yeah, I could just say, and I'm going to say this, and I want to note that we have two new speakers who have joined us too. So I want to be sure that they're able to share on this as well. I think that, Daron made a very important point, which is that these perspectives, these creative perspectives and output from the continent and from the descendants all over, that's sort of the untapped market for the quote unquote rest of the world, right? And so it's those perspectives, those lived experiences that in those histories that shape what you're going to create, that a lot of the world is looking for, because they've been getting one perspective sort of shoved down their throats for the better part of a century plus. And so this craving for new stories, this craving for African diaspora perspectives is in part because people are trying to connect with themselves. And the narrative, this is, we're all human beings, so we're all trying to connect with ourselves. And we see pieces of us in other cultural creations, which is why people are, really jumping into these other music forms. And, as people learn about one music form, it makes them look into the history of it. And then it's like, well, how did somebody create that? Or what were the experiences that would lead to that? I think it's very interesting, as a cultural creator, to stumble upon an art form that speaks to you, that you didn't grow up with. And you're like, this is me. This reflects who I am. And it comes from a culture that maybe it's aligned with your culture, maybe it intersects, it might not completely be it. And you crave that, you want to engage in it. And so I think, when Marlene and Kim were really emphasizing just telling the stories, you're not just telling the story for yourself and for people who already connect to it. There's also this idea that the world needs these perspectives for us to understand who we are as a human entity. These other experiences that come through these stories, they're very deep. And African creative processes are very deep, very integrated. A lot of things are ancient. There's a lot of new stuff as well, but it's pulling from something that's so rich. And I don't think that we should downplay that in any way. We need to always know that, kind of regardless of what arenas we're in. So that's it. And then, if I can, I'll toss it to, I guess, Olivier and Mr. Nemani.
Thank you. There is a question that I have now. I just thought about it just now, because you said that we should try to find an art that speak to people also around the world. And I wanted to direct this question to both of you, Kim and Ytasha from the USA. Do you, I don't know how to formulate it. I mean, the art, music, film, and everything coming from Africa, do you think that is spoken to you? And how, I mean, can you relate with Afrobeats, for example, to take this banal example?
Well, I'll just say it. It's can we relate to it? It's so interesting. Anything that Black creators create, regardless of where you are, there's a relationship to it because there's an overlapping relationship. So yeah, I mean, Afrobeat completely speaks to me. When I heard Mbala music at Senegal for the first time, I was like, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for. And I just hadn't heard it. When I heard rumba music and learned like the Cuban approach to salsa dancing for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, this is me. This is what I've been looking for. And the thing is that our arts are all interrelated. They're not opposites, they're complementary. So I don't listen to music from Nigeria and think, oh, I'm Nigerian, I completely can't relate. I don't feel that way at all. The beat moves me, the stories move me. I feel like it's a part of me. And I'm guessing, Kim, I think we kind of feel the same way as people in the diaspora. Africa's always home, kind of regardless.
Yeah, definitely. I can agree. In the Teaching Artists Institute, we have an oath. And it says, in the beginning was heart drum. With this vibration, we gave rhythm to the world. On this beat, we sing life. We are the rhythm people. But I think that when people talk about art, it's very important in the Teaching Artists Institute for us to take it outside of just the traditional art forms that we're used to. Like, it's bigger than hip hop. There's a book that was written by a guy in the diaspora that says that because hip hop was a musical form created out of the African American experience that kind of influenced the world. But when you look at some of those djembe drum beats, you see that influence is coming from West Africa. And, now that hip hop has been repackaged and we've got Brazilian hip hop artists and we've got, hip hop artists in Ghana and Burna Boy, now they're giving us back Afrobeat version hip hop. And so culture is fluid. It goes around and around, but it's not just fluid in music. It's fluid in architecture. It's fluid in, every art form that is inspiring you to create. It's fluid in ideas and concepts. And so it's so important that we see the entire canvas, all the colors that we're working with, because art is a multiplicity of creation. It's not singular. Like me, I'm a singer, but it's not just about the music. And I know that we had two new panelists, so I'm going to stop because I really want to meet them and figure out why they're here. And yes, so please, by all means, introduce yourself and join us.
Are they already there?
I think so. I think I saw Oliver and Anicet. I think I said that right.
I see them here. Maybe they can't hear us. Can you guys hear us?
Yes, we are here. We just try to get into the pool. You guys are so high in the description, so I just want to be sure that I'm in the right tune. Something I can say, I think we are in the question about the impact of art. How can art impact reality, right? Just to be sure that I got.
Yeah, that was the first. That is and yet the first part of our discussion. Sorry that I didn't see you. I don't know how, and I don't know why.
Can you give me just the question where we are right now to be sure that I'm
yeah, we have 3 parts for this discussion. The first part is in general a theory about the impact of art. I mean the relationship between art and reality. The second part will be you will be invited to take example from your business, from your product, and to discuss about it. And the third one will be art as a business. So now we are still in the first part of the discussion about art, relationship between art and reality.
Okay. What I can add to what everyone already said, and I think what you say, guys, is very powerful. Thanks for this input. I am really inspired by what you say. My point of view and one of my team here at Kiro'o Games is, we think it's, I have a friend who told me once, let's imagine a world without art. When often someone is telling you art is not important, they say, okay, let's make a world with a lot of money, a lot of art, a lot of everything, but we don't have music, we don't have movies, we don't have comics, we don't have, and try to imagine how sad life will be. What I will say about that is art as a human being is a huge part of what gave us finally a better understanding of reality. I owe a lot to the man I am, to comics and animation, because it's in animation that I got a lot of values, and that's where I want to go. Like, I think I will not say that I have to define the way art will be, because it's something 360, everyone go in a way he wants, depending on his intuition. But one thing I like about art is how it shares values to other one. You see, it's like we have a challenge in Africa right now. We know there is an African dream coming. We know we have to raise the bar for the next generation. But we also have this challenge, like if we take 1,000 African, I don't know for other countries, but in Cameroon, if you take 1,000 Cameroonian in the street and you ask them what is the goal of this country, they will not give you the same answers. You see, there is like, if you ask to an American, what is the American dream, you will say, we are here to build a country where everyone will get access to opportunity and become which one they don't know. You ask to French people, they will say, this country is about equality, we believe in it and we fight for it. But right now, it seems we don't have yet a clear picture in reality of what Africa or even African country must become. And I think politicians will not make it. I think it's the duty of us artists to build this vision for our generation and the kids coming. We are like the last wall. You know, there is this demographic thing in Africa right now, and we are like 20 or 30 maximum years to become one of the greatest continent ever or the worst ever because of our demographics. And I think politicians will not build the picture. It's artists who will do it. It's us who will have to create the dream of this young of 4 years old, so they can build the resilience to shape the future we want. So that's how I think art must and can change realities, because we give ideals to people that they make great things. Even religion is based on art, finally, at some point. If they didn't have these pictures of, the events, I'm not sure Christianity will have succeed if they didn't paint the events for poor people and extra. So at certain way, art creates reality. We have to see it before making it. So that's my point about it.
Thank you, Olivier. I want to remind to the public that Olivier Madiba is the founder and director of Kiro'o Games, the first video game studio in Central Africa. And I had already a question for him, because I wanted to know how is the President Raoul Mugabians going?
You asked how Mugabian is going. Mugabian is fine, everything is fine in the Boer Republic. For those who don't know, we are making a game, a parodic version of African dictatorial countries where everyone is happy with an eternal president. And we take it with a lot of jokes to avoid some problem, but it's the first simulations of a lot of challenge young African will have to face. So it's the first game where, as a young African, you will start as an intern and you will become minister of a country with managing your family, your love. And it's a huge challenge to write, because you have to show the truth. You have to give people the choice to be good people or bad people, and you have to make them laugh, but also think about real stakes of their choice if it was reality. And this is, sorry, I talk a little bit too long, but you gave me a good point. Is when we launched the demo, we have some really impressive feedbacks, like someone in public, I don't know how we call it in English, fonctionnaire, how do they call it in English? Civil servant?
Civil servant, I think so.
I have this man, is a civil servant in Cameroon, and he said that, he sent the game to his nephew, adult teenagers. They were like, one day we will be in the government, we will steal money, we'll have huge clothes like you. And when they played the game, they were like, Uncle, we make a party all the weeks in the game, but we don't succeed in our career. What is it? And the uncle started to say, that's reality, guys. You see me with the costume, with the mission. There is a party face of the job, but you have to do the job, because even in Cameroon, if you don't do the job, at a certain point, you will not make it in your career. So the game gave him for the first time the ground to get the discussion about work more than enjoy when you are a civil servant. And I think it will be very, very interesting to see social discussion about the game, how people manage side chicks or side husband, this kind of stuff. The game goes so deep.
Thank you, Olivier. I want now to introduce.
You are totally not responsible of your choice in the game.
But I really like the president. And I want to introduce now
I've seen the look of Kim, like,
the last panelist, Anicet Nemani. He's the boss of BiMstr, and also known as a specialist in tribal marketing. Anicet, but maybe because of the time, I want to introduce also the second part of our discussion with Anicet. And he can, if he wants, he can also return to the first question and a little bit explain how he thinks the relation between reality and art is. But what I would like now is that he start with the second part of our discussion about BiMstr, about his product BiMstr. How do you think, Anicet, that BiMstr can transform in a positive way the image of Africa in the world?
Hello, Jeannot. Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to contribute. You know what? When someone contacts me and say, I want you to be part of a conference, it's always a pleasure. But I always have one question. Is it going to be in English or French? When you say English, I just say to myself, I'm going to fight with words. My English is not so good. So, as I said, I'm Anicet Nemani. I'm the communication director at KZit, a French music company. I'm also CEO of BiMstr, music media reference in Cameroon, and also a lecturer at several business school in France. So yes, with BiMstr, I had to promote Cameroonian music for more than 6 years today. And when I want to answer to his question about music, he wanted to know if music can change the narrative of Africa, something like that. I just remember something when I had your question. When I was in South Africa, I used to say to some people, I'm from Cameroon. But they didn't know Cameroon. They was asking, is it a continent? Is it a city? Is it a country? They were so surprised. If I wanted people to see what I'm speaking about, I was supposed to speak about Samuel Eto'o. I said, no, Cameroon is the country of Samuel Eto'o. I see. I know him. I know Samuel Eto'o. But you know what? Today, I can say that Cameroon is also the country of Franco, the guy who sing Kole, 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 Kole la Petite. They will also know. And why I say that, because a long time ago, we used to we use football we use football to explain where we are coming from. But today we can also use music, because you can say Kole la Petite is from Hasse, Sassoa comme Sassoa is from Cameroon. So yes, I think that music can really change how people see Africa. And you know what, we have we found a narrative who explains to us that everything that comes out is more interesting than what we are doing in local, and that's why me I used to I'm very fan of French rap, and I used to listen on the French rap long time ago. I didn't even want to look what we do in Cameroon. I didn't even want to. For me, what we do there is not. It cannot be more nicely that when what I'm listening from outside. And I was so surprised to discover Cameroonian music. I was so surprised to discover those very talented artists, and that's why I decided. I just said to myself, I think many people are thinking as me, and for them, we cannot do nice things in our country, and our music is poor, and it's better to listen for foreigners' music. That's why I decided to promote our music as our music with BiMstr. So and for me, promote our music is to make more shine our culture in Cameroon and outside, because if we don't like what we're doing, no one will like it. We like it for us. So yes, I think BiMstr can change the narrative of Africa, because today, as I said, we got someone can speak about Cameroon in China, in Bangladesh, in Japanese, because they listen, Coller La Petite and BiMstr contribute to promote that song. And yes, this is what I can say about it. Yes, with promotion, when we push music, when we push talents and artists, we can really change the narrative of Africa, because artists is important, influent, and yes.
Thank you, Anicet. For those who don't know what Anicet is doing in Cameroon, is very, very, very great. I mean, every young people in Cameroon now know BiMstr, because it's something very particular. You should visualize the real influence of French rap, French music, French art, and also the influential of the US hip hop in Africa at the time. I mean, back in the on those days, people like Anicet came into the urban, the Cameroonian or the African urban scene with something new, by promoting local expression, promoting local visual, promoting local sound, local instruments. It's really a concept himself. And BiMstr is really a concept himself, and everybody, I can say everybody in, I mean, a certain generation in Cameroon, everybody speak like BiMstr. They are so special expression that you just can find on BiMstr Facebook, on BiMstr Instagram, everything. There are quite a lot that come from BiMstr, because at the time we were, I mean, I can say that we were ashamed of our local expression, local visual, and everything like that. We thought that everything coming from the US, coming from France, was better than Cameroon. And also, I can say that also BiMstr is also, I mean, fighting against Nollywood. Nollywood was, I mean, Nigeria industry was very, very huge and big. And what Anicet and BiMstr are doing is very, very interesting. I just wanted to react about it and ask you, Anicet, this question. Do you think that there is a place for Cameroonian music between, I mean, in this world scene between French rap, French urban culture, US urban culture, and Nigeria urban culture, and also Congo urban culture?
Yeah, for me, Cameroon is Cameroon, and we have our place. But for me, I think we're still growing. We cannot compare Cameroon and Nigeria. I think where the place that we have now, the Nigeria used to have that place, but Nigeria is far away now. So yes, we got our place, but still we have to work again. We have to structure our industry to be like Nigeria, but it's not gonna be today. We got our place, but we have to work.
Thank you, Anicet. Because you are talking now about music, I will move to another person, another panelist who works also in the fields of music. This is Marleyne Bandekele, because you are doing everything, girl. How do you think that what you are doing, I mean, that everything that you are doing, how do you think that it can transform in a positive manner the image of Africa in the world?
Okay, that's a very good question. I feel like the start is when you understand the value of what you're doing. And so it would go back to saying working on the artists themselves. So speaking about me, I understand, like the way I said before, the power of storytelling and telling your story. And because I understand that you are basically a representation of where you come from, you carry that image with pride. So everything that you do, you know that you are an expression of where you come from. So I believe that we as artists and myself should go back and dig deep into why we're doing what we're doing, and going back to the message that we're giving out there. Because if we want a positive image of Africa, the artists themselves need to see that positive image of Africa, need to see that hope. And so with myself, that's what I do. I continuously look for the good and I relay that. And even with the bad, you look for what you can do to change that, and you relay that message. And that's basically how I work with that, where I say, okay, I believe so much in Africa, so I will carry that and I reflect it in my art. And even with my poem that I did yesterday, when I was speaking about the fact that there is so much hope for Africa, it's just, for example, needing a bigger stage, people knowing about us. And so once you understand that part, you can carry that image and relay it to the world and basically be proud of it. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marleyne. Daron Bandeira, in these things about the image of Africa, because we are talking about the image now, that's your field. These things about the image of Africa, and there was a time, I think we are still living this time, that everything that the Western media show about Africa was a kind of image that I don't know, a kind of image that sounds. I will not say that those are not image from Africa, but they kind of only show those specific kind of image, and then everybody in the West, I mean, Europe and USA and also in the world, everybody had this image in the mind when talking about Africa, when seeing also Africa, when interacting with people with African, we have the impression that they relate only on those images showing through Western medias. How do you feel about it, and what do you do? And if do you do something? Do you try to change something about those kind of image, and how do you do that?
Yeah, so this has been a big problem for like generations now. But luckily, over the last 10 years, from my observation and from what I know, it's changed drastically, because I think the key is Africans telling their own stories. This is the main key. And right now, there's so many African creatives that are telling their own stories. And this is, and we are telling it with the reality of what we believe it should be. And we are presenting it in the best form that we think is right, you know? And this is what has changed over the last few years. There's a very good book. I always recommend this book. It's called Africa Rising. It's a very, very good book. And then this book shows Africa in the last 10 years. And it's actually based on different countries. And then you see from architecture to photography to fashion to last, how impactful young African creatives have changed this narrative of how people see things about Africa. Unfortunately, we have the National Geographic sometimes, and then also the WordPress photos showing still some bad images of Africa. But lately, like I said, like through these books and through these initiatives, things have changed. There's a lot of African designers. Like now there's a million African designers that are doing so well across the diaspora and also back home. And this is true, the fact that we are telling our stories now. This is true, the fact that we are taking Ankara and then we are sewing it on people and saying that this is the right way to do things. So I think the problem then was the fact that we were not telling our whole stories. People were telling the stories for us. So the European side of things think that that is all you need to know about Africa, right? But right now, like through myself, through initiatives that I'm also part of, has changed this narrative. For example, I started my brand Afro Bougie in 2013, and then it was a magazine to support African creatives to tell different stories. And basically it was also finding artists in each country to be able to create something that is valuable to their country. And then we had a good sponsorship to be able to travel different countries. And then we get to the place, and then we were able to invest in making people create good work, you know? So I feel like for us to change this is also the fact that we have to set up institutions that would support creative arts in Africa. Like, I'll just give you a quick example. Let's say, for example, in Germany right now, in Berlin, for example, when you live in Berlin, there is a lot of funding, so much funding for art, so much. It's incredible. You can just write your own pitch, deliver the pitch, and then they will fund you to tell your story if your story is interesting. And this is incredible. And I feel like this is what Africa is missing. Africa doesn't lack the creatives, but the structures for creativity to thrive, you know? So there needs to be structures built in Africa to be, and I'm not talking about structures like just taking money and going to give it to the politicians. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about structures in terms of like different art councils, different art support group, photography support group, fashion support groups. This is where the funding goes to in different countries. And then the creatives that think that they can do something would then have access to these things. They'll be able to get some of these funding to be able to do projects. And that way, we will be telling our own stories, because trust me, there's so many stories out there that people want to tell, but the support system is not there for them to tell it. So this is what I'll say. So the image, for us to change that image view of what people think Africa is, we really have to put the structures in place to support, because there's so many people down there that can do things. But like I said, the last few years, the last 10 years, things have changed. And the book is called Africa Rising. It's a very, very good book, because I feel like it really celebrates us. And it's from artists from different parts of Africa. And then, you know, it really talks about, what's the name? Like things that people are doing, from architecture to last. And I feel like this is what the rest of the world needs to know. Yeah.
Thank you, Daron.
Can I say something about the support part?
I wanted directly to ask you the question, Olivier, because the last part of our discussion is about business, art as business. I think I know you have a real experience about it, about these crowdfunding things. I wanted to come to you now, to move to you now with this question, because you're in general, when we speak about art and those things in Africa, we see photography, film, movie, music, and etc. But video games, that is something else in Africa. I mean, I would not say that. Yeah, I mean, don't take me wrong. I not say that other kind of art are maybe easier to do, but video games is something very special in Africa.
Yes, special because it's new, because every art has its own challenge. It's just that some other arts, at least like music, have to take some more time to build foundation, and we are more in the foundation part of video games in Africa. And yes, but I see video games like a combination of everything else. Like, it's, you know, when you make mathematics, it's often in coding that you will apply mathematics. So I see video games like the place where a lot of other arts can connect to build something. So, because it's about writing, music, coding, even, because for some coders, coding is an art, and drawing, of course. But I don't know if I want to jump into the support mindset we have as artists, and I had it too. When we started Kiro'o Games, we were all about, we have to find support, someone has to support us. And I know Daron is telling it in a constructive way. Of course, it's not against what he said. I just try to enlarge the meaning we put in this word. In fact, I think one of the challenges we will have to face is there is no cavalry for us. You know, previous generation, I will not say they did bad because they did what they knew with their view of the world, but if, for example, when you see the story of Walt Disney, for example, at a certain point of his life, there was elders in America who understood the challenge to have animation coming from this country for the generation and for the goal USA had for the world. So at a certain point of his life, he was in his studio and someone else come and say, we want to bring you to the next level because we see even before you where this thing will go. Even when you see Steve Jobs, there is someone in this ecosystem which were like, we see you go farther than you think. But we don't have, I think the one who will do it in Africa is us for the next one, because we are the first generation with this mindset. Like you can see, like what you say about BiMstr, I hope I say it well. Like you can see someone making a music and he's still not there, but you have the mindset to say, I will bring this guy to the next level. So right now for us, we will be the one giving support to the next generation, but guys and girls, we are the cavalry. And for this, we have to be everything ourselves. We have to be the businessman. We have to be the artist, the creative one. But we have to understand, I will go on a practical example. When we started video games and we talked to telecom like Orange, we were like, yes, it's about culture, give us money, so we will make your advertising, blah, 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 and culture. They were like, yeah, what you do is amazing, and no one call you back ever. And one of my mentors told me, you have to talk money, young guy. You have to go to them and you have to understand how they will make money with your game. And now you start to say, okay, I will come to you at Orange and say, okay, guys, I make a game that will have 100 megabytes size on Play Store. If 1 million Cameroonians download it, I know for sure that you will maybe earn like 100 or 200 million francs CFA because of this download in your turnover, I don't know, your turnover, chiffre d'affaires. It's the right word, right? Chiffre d'affaires, turnover.
I have no idea.
Okay, you will say that, okay, my game will make you win 200 million francs CFA because of the amount of data people will get will use to get it. So if I ask you now to invest 20 million in this game, so you will not let 1 million download be a luck, but you invest on the fact that I raise the chance to make 1 million download, you go from 5% interest to 30% interest. And they are not like, oh, okay, this is good, and now we have to make it pass in the budget of this year. So you maybe not have the deal, but at least it's not about support, it's about business. And we creative have to make this balance, because you know we are like, we create stuff with our soul, and the soul not really love money, but we love money, but not as, you know, these capitalist guys in Wall Street. But we have to find a way to be in the middle. We have to understand Wall Street talk, because it's in Wall Street that we get the money we want. And it will give us the right to build what we want for the soul of others. That's a little bit one of the challenges our generation of artists will have to face, and that we try to face already at Kiro'o. I insist on the word try. We are still trying to make it. It's not easy at all.
Thank you, Olivier. For those who don't know, Olivier is considered in Cameroon as one of the smartest young founder in Cameroon, because what he already realized is really, really amazing. And he has this story with crowdfunding. He was able to to get can I say it like that? A lot of money for the product. Was that a lot of money?
To make the story short, it's like every time we try at Kiro'o Games to raise money by the standard way, like venture capital, big business angels, blah, 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 banks, they always say that we lie and that we never do what we say we will do. Like, you will never make this African fantasy game. You will never build what we try to do right now. So every time we have to literally invent our own way to raise funds. Right now, the name is equity crowdfunding, but when we started, it didn't have a name. And it's something that we share. We show out to people how they can raise money like us. And we are even coding our platform to make everyone being able to raise money like that. So it's literally like, it's easier to find 100 people in Africa giving you 10,000 francs CFA, for example, it's like 18 USD. It's easier to find 10,000 people giving you 18 USD than to find one people giving you, 10 millions, etc. So that's what the paradigm we have.
I want to ask to.
I wanted to. Okay. Can I quickly add to this point quickly? I wanted to talk about one of Africa's success stories, which is, let's say, Ghana, for example, over the last 2 years, 3 years. And that is, I think, a very good example of structure. So Ghana, during 2019, decided that they were going to do the year of return, meaning that they were going to bring a lot of diaspora Americans, Afro-Americans to come back to Ghana to invest in Ghana, right? And then they made it easy in terms of, they made it easy because, first of all, the president of the country said that if you come, you could buy a land or you could get a visa for free. And all Americans were happy to do this kind of stuff or come and buy a property in Ghana, right? And then the other things that they did was structure. So basically they placed a structure where you could find agencies to be able to apply for visas, meaning that you from visa to how you shop, to everything, to how you party, they made everything so easy. So they set up different forms of companies to be able to support this kind of thing. And then they actually told the locals or people that live in Ghana that if you're able to set up something, we will make this American group of people that are coming this year come and, be part of it or purchase. You know what I mean? So basically what happened with this was that because, first of all, the president opened up the country for people to come in, and then people in the country created structures, right? It was easier for tourism to boost at a high margin. Locals on the street were selling food at a high margin. People were selling clothes at a very high margin. There was music, there was art. Everybody's investment, like everybody that had invested was getting the investment back. And this is what I'm talking about when I say structure, So if, as an African creative, like me, I lived in Africa all my life. I just moved to Europe, actually. As an African creative that is starting up in Africa, right? If there was a structure, like a gallery that I could go to, and I'm not talking about one, I'm talking about a lot of them. And I say that, oh, I'm going to bring my work for you to feature it. Obviously, even in Africa, we ourselves hate on, like we always hate on ourselves, So basically you will still face problems, right? But if the structures were supportive enough, that's why I give the example of Germany, unfortunately. Their structures are so supportive that it's not about a person that neglects you or says no to you, but a whole government that is supporting you. So basically, it's not about somebody sitting in the office saying that no, or a few board members. No, it is a right in the country, established in the country, that when you are creative and you have an amazing idea, you can bring it forward and you can pitch for this funding. And even if you don't get the total amount, you might get a small one. This is what I'm talking about, structures. And this is why I gave Ghana as an example. That's what Ghana did in 2019 to bring all these people. Afro Nation was in Ghana, all these concerts. In their case, they did it for music, arts, and then also brought a lot of Americans to invest in the country, right? So this is what needs to happen in different African countries. Like Kenya has also done this as an example, They've done it with tourism. Tanzania does it with safari, Zanzibar, they do it with travel, you know? So this is what one African country needs to also say, okay, we want to increase everybody's growth in the country. So we are going to establish something that people can support and invest in. And this is the structure that I'm talking about. And because there is no structures in Africa currently, in most countries, this is why we are struggling, I would say.
Olivier, I see you. I think we will come back to this point, because it's actually one of the third point, the three points of our discussion. I have the impression that we have totally forgotten our diaspora, and I wanted to ask a question directly to both of our diaspora people here. And my question is if or whether they have seen a change, a sort of change, because they are living in the US, and then they know how Africa was portrayed back in the time, and now with this new dynamic and everything, do they notice something like a change in the way people in the US are seeing Africa and African?
You know, it's interesting. I think Africa, you know, I grew up valuing Africa and its contribution. So, you know, when you go into images and changes and what's changed, I mean, I grew up with, you know, an array of Yoruba art in my home. And, you know, a lot of, you know, Black people I knew grew up with, you know, depictions, you know, they grew up with masks, they grew up with, you know, a host of artwork and celebrated having something from the continent in their home, or wearing garb or jewelry or outfits or something, you know, to constantly, in their own ways, preserve a relationship. I mean, even to the point of, you know, calling ourselves African American, you know, to constantly reinforce that relationship. So I grew up in a diasporic environments that valued African culture, that valued, you know, I went to a dance school where you learn ballet, tap, and, you know, variations of various African dances. When I would go to see dance performances, I wasn't always saying, you know, the ballet. I was saying Alvin Ailey, which is, you know, African diasporic modern dance troupe, but also I'm going to see, you know, the different African traditional dancers, contemporary dancers who are coming into town. So for me, I think you have to kind of acknowledge that. So I didn't grow up, and a lot of Black people in the US didn't necessarily grow up with all these negative images, because you had Black people living there who wanted to say, hey, forget these images. You see these masks, you see this artwork. Okay, we're going to this museum, we're going to the Africa section, and you're going to understand what this means. So I was sort of, you know, grew up in an environment where you're always rediscovering, or I don't want to say rediscovering, you're always building more relationships with your African heritage and contemporary Africa, because it's your responsibility to push that on, to share that in your stories, you know, in the same way, you know, with our own struggles as Black people in the US. We see these as related. And so, you know, even to the extent to which people don't always know a lot, they do at the very least know that there's a pride, there's a heritage, and they have to go above and beyond to learn it, even to the extent that they don't see it in, say, mass media. So I just have to establish that. But the shift that I've seen has a lot to do with a continuation of something that's been going on for some time, which is Black artists around the world, similar to ourselves, have been influencing one another. So, you know, I could go to Dakar and, you know, you had jazz artists coming to Black American jazz artists coming to Dakar in the 50s and 60s. If I'm listening to, you know, I like to watch the Rumble in the Jungle fight sometimes with, you know, Muhammad Ali and so forth. And that whole musical concert was a diasporic concert where you had Cuban music, you had Celia Cruz, you had James Brown, you had, and different artists from the Congo. You had Miriam Makeba, out of South Africa. So, you had this mutual influence of music and culture for a very long time. And I think now because of the internet and a lot of our technologies, we're able to see that influence in real time. Where I can go to Senegal and I can see people doing, of course, hip hop, traditional dances, and footwork from Chicago. Or I'm going, I'm listening to South African house music, which is influenced by the Chicago house music scene at one point, or to that extent, like, the scene in Baltimore, and so there's all these relationships, this mutual influence that's been happening. And now what you see is sort of a precipice where people are excited, influenced by contemporary African works because they can see them. Before, you can always see it in real time. Now someone can make their own music video, post on YouTube. Oh, wow, I see this. I can see it now. I can connect to people. And that makes them want to learn more. And I'm talking about within the Black diaspora. And that makes people want to learn more about the musical heritage. So there's people learning about Afrobeat today who are like, wait, there was an artist named Fela, and then they go into Fela's music. Or they realize that there's all these contemporary scenes, and it can be, quite annoying to say, where did all this music come from? I'd have been their biggest fans if I knew they existed 20 years ago. So, so we get to this point where we're constantly trying to refine ourselves, as Black creators. And that made me think of, two things. I speak about Senegal a lot because I spent time there in part through the Blackrock Senegal Residency, which Kehinde Wiley, an African-American artist, most known for doing Barack Obama's official portrait, he created a residency for artists in Dakar. And the goal was to, have people of all walks of life think of Dakar as a center of influence for art, which it is, but we think about Paris for art, people are like, oh, we have to go to London. They're not always, they're thinking about going to Africa for heritage. They're not always thinking about it in terms of going there for contemporary understandings of to influence, think about art, look at artistic practices. And so that particular residency, it was an intersection of people from across the diaspora and elsewhere. And we're all together thinking about culture, history, and art, creating our own works. And we're in Dakar meeting other artists from Dakar. And so there's a synergy of just artists in the diaspora, in the continent, meeting one another through these kinds of residencies. There's the School of the Sand, which is also right outside Dakar, which is a, sort of a dance residency institute. And people have been coming there for years, learning specifically, the Jermaine Cogni's, her specific dance techniques. So, I grew up thinking, man, learning different African styles, thinking about these certain techniques. And it's like, wait, here's a woman who's been teaching a specific technique for years. And so a lot of times it's about us popularizing programs that are already existing and amongst ourselves, building more relationships so that we can exchange and learn from one another. I mean, some of the greatest insights I had about Afrofuturism before I wrote the book, Afrofuturism, was with a conversation I had with a dancer from the Ivory Coast while I was in Paris. And there was someone interpreting for us because my French is not amazing. And she and I musically and dance-wise, we had the exact same language, same dance language. But we spoke two different languages. And if there hadn't been an interpreter there, I wouldn't have been able to see, wait, this thing I'm sitting here thinking about in Chicago is the same thing this woman is thinking about. And she's from the Ivory Coast. We're thinking the exact same thing. And we don't know this until we come together and someone's helping interpret. So, I think that, we have to realize that there have been barriers created for us not to see one another. and to see, to the extent to how the cultures align. We know it, but we don't always experience it. And to the extent we experience it, sometimes we deny it because it's not reflected in the larger mass media spaces that we're in. So for me, as a person who writes about Afrofuturism, among other things, I like always using art as a connector and using our stories as a connector for us to see ourselves through one another and to think, wait a minute, this idea I'm thinking is similar to this other idea. Oh, wait, there's a history behind it. And for us to really actively build those kinds of relationships, in addition to the business infrastructure. But to realize that people have been creating these sorts of collectives for some time and gaining insight to our practice, because if artists don't have a relationship to their own practice and have a context for it, or even understand, as Black creators, who we are as individuals, but where our art and creation stands over a larger trajectory, and then who we are as people of the continent or of African descent. That's it. We can't be effective creators if we don't understand who we are as people shaped by a perspective it's shaped by the African continent and those ideas. So all of that, and a lot of times you don't know what you're thinking until you interact with other people and you start to see those relationships.
Thank you, Ytasha. I will ask the same question to Kim, and also because she works in a school, something like in this institute, and she has a big how you say it, a big role into this transformation of the African image in the diaspora, because you are teaching that. How do you think that you're in your art and also in your activities as a scholar, how do you think that it's related? It's helped to transform the idea of Africa in the diaspora, in the world now.
So I think it's really interesting everything that Ytasha said from her own personal experience. Starting with your own story is critical because you can never refute my personal experience. And so I love the fact that her world was in many ways very similar to mine, Africa as the aesthetic, right? Filled with African art. I went to church, and once a month, our church dressed up in what we considered African Ankara attire at our jubilees on Sunday. And I remember, I'm not sure of when her noun was, but I'm 35. So I actively remember when Serafina came out and talked about South Africa and apartheid, and how the choral music got me so excited because it reminded me of my chorus at school. And I remember coming to America when that movie came out, and I'm like, this is great. Like, the guys that come from Africa to America are rich. And I'm just waiting for my prince to find me, because I know that he got money at home. And yes, I'm going back to Africa with him. So I think about, just the little touches over my history when I was exposed to art from an African context in my mind. And I also remember going to school with some of the children of Africans that migrated on their own. And, they were called African booty scratchers. I also, remember how derogatory that was. Like, the worst thing in the world that you could be called growing up in school was an African booty scratcher. I don't even know what an African booty scratcher is, but it was terrible. Like, oh my God. It was the worst thing that you could be as an insult if somebody was cracking on you. And I also remember the commercials that came on TV, just 10 cents a day. You would see these little kids and they had flies in their eyes and bellies swollen with hunger. And, the commercials, they played in between every other commercial. They were the most frequent commercials that you saw. And just 10 cents a day will save, this little child from hunger. And for me, outside of Kwanzaa celebration, it's like a celebration that African Americans do to acknowledge their roots. That to me was Africa. And then I started to actually travel to Africa through my art as a singer. The first time that I came to Africa is when the local festivals, they began to invite me and my band to perform. And to me, that was great because I got an opportunity to see both sides and the gap in resources on the continent and how real it was, like coming to America and, super, super rich. And then, those 10 cents a day commercials in real life. And I realized that, wow, Africa is both. And in the diaspora, the relationships that diasporians of African descent have to Africa, that's also both. And so I'm not going to paint a beautiful picture of Pan-African unity and pride, and we're just all in the US or in the diaspora, in the Caribbean, etc., just holding hands. I know Africans in the diaspora that are so glad that they left Africa, and the US is the best thing that ever happened to them. And they're so glad that they have access to the resources in this market, because I'm crazy for spending my money to go back and forth and build programs in Africa, because they, say, Kim, the money is here. Why do you keep leaving, going to Africa, looking for resources? I am from Africa. The resources are in America. You are leaving them behind every time you come. And so being an African living in the diaspora and being able to see both worlds, I think that is the real benefit. Being a bridge between, I guess, Africa and the rest of the world, or Africans in the diaspora, by promoting and preserving the African identity, to me is just crucial to our ability to connect as global Africans, because it was the art part, the traditional arts that I met first, that introduced me to what Africa was. And so I feel like we need to continue to encourage artists to create art that tells the whole story, so that, I had to find out for myself, going and meeting Africans in the diaspora, meeting them on the continent, that I too am African. Just because my culture developed outside of Africa doesn't mean that I have to speak Yoruba, or that I have to, speak, I always say Yoruba, I guess it's because there's so many Nigerians, but even if it's Swahili or down in South Africa, that Africans in the continent and in the diaspora know that diasporians are African too. And so, hip hop and jazz and R&B, those are just as much African art forms as, high life in Ghana or Afrobeat in Nigeria. And so I think that most importantly, being of action, like being thankful for what you did today as moderator and the Made in Africa conference happening in Germany, but still having a conversation about global Africans and the importance of promoting and preserving the African identity. This is a part of the solution, and finding the resources. We are each other's resource. The human resource is the greatest resource. And as we begin to analyze how to resource our own communities and be our own solutions, I think it's important that we remember to look to each other. And so thank you for hosting this conversation today.
Thank you, Kim. And if you want, you can also learn Douala or Fefe or Lingala. There are people here in the stage who can teach you all those language. Not only
yes,
you,
because we want
not
them.
only
we
Lumumba. I find it very interesting, your point, and especially, I don't know why, especially this point, this line. I don't know why I'm keeping saying line, maybe because of this hip hop things in my mind. I found the line about the money is here. I found it very interesting. You are people living in the diaspora. You are people living where the money is. You are people who maybe, the diaspora maybe has a huge role to play into this dynamism of this young these young Africans in the continent, and also as with the story that Daron just told about this political structure that could make it easy between the diaspora and African on the continent to cooperate. I want to catch it and to introduce now our third part of the discussion. It's about money. It's about art as a business. How do you think you both from the diaspora? How do you think that? How do you see the role of the diaspora now? I mean, in terms of creating resources for young people, for young artists in the continent. How do you think that? How do you see this role, and how could that be possible to establish such a possibility that I mean, people who has money helps other people who has not that much money?
Well, I could. Oh, go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, Ytasha,
I just wanted to say that there's a question inside of the Zoom chat. I know you said you wanted to transition to the next section, but I think there's a question from the session we're leaving that we might want to answer before we moved on. I'm not sure if you can see the group chat as I can see it.
Okay. You can read it aloud and maybe you answer it, Kim.
Okay. It says Ruth Fine from the YouTube live chat is asking a question and commenting on YouTube. In the beginning of the discussion, I would love to have your opinions on one point. He says me. Kim Poole talked about African film industry such as Nollywood, telling the story of the people. Do you think that is enough? My question comes from a discussion I once had with a filmmaker who pointed out the fact that African filmmakers only focus on reproducing the reality, which is what I understand by tell the story. And he think they should be adding some idealism in the movies, proposing solutions, even if it is utopia. What is your opinion of this? So I guess I can go first, since I read the question and he mentioned my name.
Kim, I will propose to maybe you can. I mean, maybe we can move forward to the third part, and we will answer all those questions at the end of our discussion, if you want.
Great idea.
Okay,
no
thank you. Because of the question of money. Yeah, and the question was, how do you see the role of the diaspora in terms of finding resources for artists in the continent?
I'll just say that when it comes to, I think that people in the diaspora need to recognize the access that they have. And I think sometimes, because I'll just talk about being in the US, creatives in the US are always trying to create more access, because Black creatives in the US don't feel they have the same sort of access in many respects as some of their other counterparts. And so there's that particular dynamic, right? But I think in addition to that, whether you have the same kind of access or the access you feel you should have, you do have more access than people in some other places. And kind of understanding what that means, and sort of the responsibility of creating not just opportunities, but to some extent, at least building relationships and thinking about how you're going to contribute to giving rise to voices of people in other parts of the diaspora who don't have the same resources or the same supports. And I think that's just something to be very intentional about. I'm a storyteller, so oftentimes for me, that comes in the form of storytelling. It comes in the forms of things I'm writing. It comes in the forms of histories and contemporary things I'm mentioning, some things people I'm working with, but it's a constant. I think it's something that always has to be cultivated, because people in the diaspora can get very immersed in their own struggles and sometimes not seeing how it connects or how it plays out globally, or to the extent they might understand where it's positioned globally, they might not always think about that they have a little more access than someone else, and that they can kind of create opportunities and build in that way. I think another thing is also understanding the markets. You know, I mean, Africa and creatives and the spaces in Africa, it's not just about a point of inspiration, but it's also about realizing that there's audiences there. And, you know, the more you have to cultivate relationships to build on those audiences, you know, I think the more people can get their work out in ways and not have to rely on other support systems.
Thank you. Kim?
So with the Teaching Artists Institute, on the front of our shirts is our motto. And our motto is that culture is the new currency. And I think that a lot of our global view of what it means to be economically empowered is based on capitalism, and capitalism is a product of the colonial powers that raped and pillaged African people around the world. The reason I live in the diaspora in the first place is because even me and my family was considered a commodity to be bought and sold. And that mindset in a lot of ways still exists, even if not in practice, so that any and everything should be bought and sold to the highest capacity expansion without control. And when we say that culture is the new currency, it's because it reminds me of your first question. Artists need to be re-invited to decision-making tables. We need to take our place in leadership to define reality so that we can remind the world that culture is the new currency, that we're not necessarily looking to be stupid, filthy rich. That's unbalanced. We want everybody to have their share at sustainability, meaning being in balance with your environment. The sister, I'm not even sure where you're from. We got to connect because you're on point. But she said, you know, connecting is a part of that cultural currency. And so when I think about artists in the diaspora like myself that are coming back to the continent, it's because it's easier for me with a US passport right now to go from Ghana to Rwanda than it is for somebody that's in Ghana, and they may need to connect. So it's really just logistical, like helping the right people connect at the right time at this point in history. Because this is a really unique time. Not every time in history has the ability to change the game, but artists are right now positioned in a way to change the value system of humanity if we are properly positioned and if we're in communication and if we're connected. So when I think about resource, I just said it, the human resource is the great resource, the greatest resource. And only when we truly value that will we be able to realign culture as the new currency. And when I say culture, make no mistake about it, I'm talking about indigenous African culture. And a lot of people are saying indigenous now because it's cute, but I'm talking about our value systems like barter and trade. Yes, I can help one of my African artists do a tour around the world because I know somebody in that city and that city and that city, and they're all going to give you a place to stay. They're all going to give you a meal to eat. They're all going to help you get a ride to your show and maybe help you set up a few chairs and sell a few tickets. We have to get back to our culture. Barter and trade has always been a part of our culture. When we think about the marketplace and how it works, it's always based on human scale. And so I think that when we redefine what currency means for us as artists, when we redefine what success looks like, what sustainability looks like, I think that we will find value in the diaspora, because I'm not a Black girl coming to Africa with green dollars. They like, oh, that's the girl from the US. Yeah, I connect with any kind of artist thing you create because I know you bringing green dollars with you. And it's like, yeah, we understand who has money and who doesn't in this economy. And so I may have a couple more dollars than you do because dollars are worth more than maybe, I don't know, Tanzanian shillings. So yeah, I get it. But when we begin to buy each other's artistic goods, and I'm not just talking about paintings, I'm talking about every product that we produce is art. When we remember that art is ideas and everything around us, the buildings we live in, the sofas we sit on, the shoes that we wear, the cars that we drive in are art forms being manifested. When we remember that artists are creating all the things we need, and if we would buy from the artists within our community, we would have the currency we need for the connections and the mobility, the upward mobility that global Africans need. So I don't want to keep talking on and on. We're going to write a book about it. Don't y'all worry.
Thank you very much for the energy. I actually had in my head. I actually had a question before you speak. I actually had a question in my mind. I wanted to ask. I wanted to say that the Black community in the US is the richest Black community in the world, and every people, the Chinese, the European, and everyone is right now investing in Africa, but we are not. I mean, at least from my perspective, we are not seeing a Black American or the Black diaspora also in the Caribbean. We are not seeing those people returning to Africa and invest there. But I guess is maybe the question is not more very interesting now.
Well, it's a little loaded, but I'll say that we have to change the narrative. You know, for the past 6 years, I've been working with the Teaching Artists Institute. Our first conference connecting artists and art culture to sustainable development was in Ghana, the second in the Gambia, the third in Uganda, the fourth in Tanzania, and this year we're in South Africa. So my singer sister, we're gonna have to connect with you and bring you to perform at the conference. But you know, we have to begin to take the microphone and tell our own stories. And that means us that are doing this work, because it's not popular. It's only a couple of us that want to make sure that we promote and preserve the African identity, want to actualize art in a way that benefits global Africans. So when we change our own story and we believe the hype, like we believe the story that we telling, like then maybe things will start to materialize in our world. When we believe it in our mind, we have to change our mindset. So if you're looking for Oprah to come and, you know, buy a country and take over like the Chinese, who even said that was our cultural value system? And if that was of value, do we really need a Chinese chief of police in Zambia? Do we really need the Chinese to buy the port of Mombasa in Kenya? Do we really want African living in the diaspora to come and just buy up things and reproduce what the Chinese is doing with their, you know, cultural colonization and their soft colonization and the second scramble for Africa? We're coming to Africa looking to repatriate and assimilate, to be a part, to add to what is there, to bolster. We're not looking to take over. We're not looking to buy, to conquer and divide. These are European values. So we're looking to reproduce the system. When I think about one of the African Union's policies called Agenda 2063, they talk about in this policy aspirations for Africans' development, the Africa we want. But it's so important that as we build the Africa we want, that we're not building it in the same manner in which Europeans or Asians build. We have to look for our way. We have to look for our cultural trajectory. How we build matters. And that's why when I said that art is the pedagogy, it's how we do things, like the griot in the African society that is a library, but also tells stories. That's how he held the history, but he was holding the history. And a genealogist, when we look at the drummer, that communication system that maybe helped us acknowledge when war was coming to threaten our gates, or to recognize when a life transitioned into the realm of the ancestors. This is a communication system, just like the cell phones that we use today, only he was using a drum. So how we build matters. So we want to make sure that as artists, we don't allow them to recreate the same system. We're not trying to do African development like other communities have done it outside of Africa. We want to do African development in an African way. And artists have to be at that table to make sure that we do it in our own cultural worldview.
Thank you, Kim. And we can, yeah, Olivier, if you want to jump in the discussion, yeah.
Thanks a lot for the energy, Kim. Like, it's make a lot of, and Ytasha too, because it's make a lot of good to listen it from someone else, because you know, when I think you also have often the feeling that you are alone shouting this in the desert, and when we gather in a place like that, so I'm not crazy. I had a long meditation about this question of diaspora and how the world works, and even it's something that we put a lot in our first game, like it's a total geopolitical reflection in the fantasy world, in the place of Africa. And what I have discovered is like there is a paradox in the way we will win. First, I will say that diaspora, I will talk much about the diaspora coming from Africa to other parts of the world. I have a friend who is not here in Cameroon anymore because he literally dropped out, like, I gave up. This country, I gave up. He's now living his best life in Canada. And after 2 years of best life in Canada, he's saying me that he wants to get back in Cameroon sooner or later because he realized that at some point he will never get the respect he deserves in every part of the world until his motherland is well. You know, there's this fact that if you are Chinese in America, at some point there was racism, but you know, when China started to become big, racism get a little bit lower because, you know, news of your country were not about people starving anymore. It was more about you, the second power of the world, etc. And this brings me to a paradox, like to change the world, you may have a little bit to respect the rules that you want to break first. Like, I have this scene in the Lincoln movie when Lincoln was discussing with, I don't know, the old man to end up slavery in America. I don't know if it's a real discussion, but the paradox is in the discussion. Like, the old man was saying that we have to free slaves and we have to give Black people the right to vote and to give them lands and, you know, the real human plan. And Lincoln was saying that, when I was young, that was my plan. But when I see the stakes, I'm like, if I want to do the greater good right now, I will lose the possible good, because there is no way the guys that are fighting us and supporting us to end up slavery right now will accept that we want to build equal rights. So at a certain point, we will have to leave this fight to another generation, but at least make the end of slavery happen, at least in the law. And this is something I think, like you say, we have to not try to reply an Occidental colonialism schema, but we also have at the same time, and I don't have the answer, I just have the question, to win with the current rules too. Because at a certain point, if we don't have the symbol of power, the world respect right now, we may never get the chance to really change stuff, and we're still just shouting in the desert. So I just have the paradox. I still meditating on it every day. Like, okay, we'll have to get the money, but how far will we go? And will we not just become other people, like what we want to break? And yeah.
But Olivier, I want to, to introduce now this. We were already in the third part of our discussion. but that was so the first part of the third part, because it was focused in the diaspora. But now the condition on the continent, will you say that it could also be possible without green paper? The artists in the continent, can they live from their art?
I would like to take this one.
Okay, Daron.
It's very possible, actually. The artists on the continent most of them are living off their art. Just because of my own research and my own like I said, over the last 10 years. The thing that, like actually from what he said earlier, the thing that needs to happen now is that the diaspora coming to Africa needs to come with a mindset of collaboration. And I think that's the point that she made, like, they need to come with a mindset of collaboration. And then we Africans have to allow these collaborations to happen. Because I feel that over the years, this is what has been destroyed, because what happens is that, unfortunately, when the diaspora comes back to Africa, they think that they are better than the Africans that are there. Unfortunately, this is what has happened. Just give your cousin give an example of your cousin that goes to America and then comes back home, and then they're like, you are African, I'm about to teach you this big idea of a restaurant or something. Just that simple factor will make you understand what I'm talking about. So it's a two sides now. First of all, the diaspora needs to come in with a mindset that I really want to collaborate with these people. He's a photographer, so I'm not coming to teach him new ideas, because he knows very well his territory, but I'm about to amplify his ideas, meaning I'm about to take him to the next level. And then we have to accept that these people that are coming in are for the good of us. They're coming to help us. They're coming to support us. They're coming to, to take us somewhere. I would go back also to one of the points that happened, which was about, because I was in Tanzania for 3 years. I was living in Zanzibar for 3 years, because for me, I was like, I needed to see all the unique features of Africa. And this is my 19 African countries. I wanted to see every single part and document it. And then when I went to Tanzania, Tanzania has one of the most beautiful beaches in the whole world. Zanzibar has some of the best beaches. But when you walk on the beach from one end to another, everything is either owned by Italians or Germans, right? Everything. And then what we, the Africans, are doing is that we are employees of the place. And this is why I would say that it's very important for the diaspora to come in now, the Black diaspora come in now, to set up agencies to support us so we can buy back our items, because this is what what is happening right now. We have to be able to buy back our things, because we are talking about the Chinese doing this, Chinese doing that. The Chinese is doing that because they see a space. But we have to make sure that they don't see that space. We have to invest in our spaces before they come in to see a space and then invest in there. So I think the diaspora coming in, they have to teach us how to do it. The Jay-Z's, the Oprahs, everybody, they have to come in and say that, okay, you are a talk show host, so we are going to push you to have a talk show, and then you make enough money to be able to buy an island or something, But we are neglecting what we have, and then that is going at a very speed rate of how people are purchasing our properties. And then it cuts across every industry, from the mining sector to the architecture sector. It's just, they are taking everything, So right now, the diaspora needs to come in really quick and be like, you know what? This is where we are from, and we have to support these people here. We are coming to create agencies, and we can move forward together. That's why I really like Kim's point, because Kim said that what she's been doing over the years is that, she comes, and then it's not necessarily to break and take properties away, but rather to come and then, form a foundation for us, you know what I mean? And this is This is very, very important because, like I said, for me, documenting all these things, I see it and I'm like, wow, how many Africans will even go to Madagascar? But if you step your foot in Madagascar, you'll be amazed how beautiful it is, you know. But the idea of Madagascar is that it's one of the most poorest places, which is true, right? But the only reason, but the French have found a way to live in that poor place in luxury. And this is the problem that we are having. You know, they say that it's the most poorest place. So the images that goes into the world is that, oh, this is a very dirty place. But then they are there, and then they've set up their restaurants and stuff, and then they're investing in they're recycling the rubber, what's the name? All the dust, how they call it, rubbish, and they are reinvesting it into clothes and selling it outside. And they are creating all these things, but then they are selling it to us that it is, you know, don't go to Madagascar because it has measles outbreak, you know. And these are the things that needs to change. So coming to the question where you said that can African creators make it in Africa? I grew up in Africa. I know that everybody is privileged differently, so I won't say that it cuts across everybody's span. But for me and the people that I've known, or the creators that I've known, it's possible. It's really possible to make it in Africa. Because like I said, for me coming to Europe now, it's actually more to exhibit that you all are going back home. I'm actually always telling people that, you know, you need to go back and invest in Africa. I always tell Africans that I meet that this is what you have to do next. So for me, like I made it in Africa. I understood what it was. I understood that to make it in Africa, you can't be at one position. Meaning, if I was in Ghana throughout my life, I wouldn't have been able to make it, you know? So I had to move to different places to be accepted in Kenya, to be accepted in Tanzania, to be accepted in Congo, you know? So that then, and also accepting, meaning that when I went there, I didn't go like, oh, I'm the Ghanaian privileged boy that is coming to, because I know something, so I'm coming to, you know, teach these people. No, I went to connect with the locals, with the community. So we started a festival together, which happens once a year in October. Like we started a festival together, and then the acceptance came in. So it's the same thing for the diaspora. Diaspora coming in, the idea that Africans might not know is wrong, especially Afro-Europeans. I love Afro-Europeans to bits, but most Afro-Europeans come to Africa because, unfortunately, their forefathers have this idea that Africa is the worst place in the world. You know, so when they come back, they're like, oh, we are coming to help these people. No, that fashion idea that you've taught about is already being taught about in Africa. But you need to go there and collaborate with these people, so that then you can and not to rip off, because what also happens is that there is a rip off that happens at the end of the day. So for example, they come in terms of like, let's have a forum, then, you know, there is this person with a lot of African designers, and then they talk about then they tell them all their skills, and then they end up taking the skills away to Europe to use it. You know, they come and then they set up some seamstresses to make clothes, and then they are selling the product outside. But they took the ideas from the young African fashion designers that are just sitting at home. And these are the things that really, really, really need to change. So diaspora coming back in, if you want us to really build, you have to come in with the idea of collaboration. And we Africans have to give you a chance again because I feel like that relationship is broken, you know, like we need to accept again that, say that, and this is what happened with Ghana. That's why I give Ghana as an example, because I feel like they really accepted the international world again, and then it's actually worked for the greater good of both sides, you know, because less people want to leave Ghana now, you know, even though there is like things happening. Obviously the light is not consistent, but there is even less people, young people are like, oh, I can create my own brand and I can support. So this is what I think is going to change our economic value if we are able to do this. Yeah.
This is really interesting, Daron. We would like to know what Marleyne, you think about this.
I want to add something.
Yes, you can. And then Marleyne can give her input as well afterwards.
Yes, He wanted to know if artists are living from the arts. And yes, I want to speak about artists from Cameroon and French, those French country. I know that it's not. We cannot say that they are really living from the arts, and there is some reason for that. What's the problem? The problem is in Cameroon we know how to make music, we know how to make good music, but we don't know that much about the music business. So an artist gonna go to the studio, make a good song, but he doesn't know enough about distribution. He doesn't know enough about publishing. He doesn't know enough about producing. When he's gonna sign a contract, but he doesn't know really what's in the contract and what is he supposed to do. And that's a really, really big problem that we have now. That's why when an artist goes to the studio, he makes one song, and his business model is let me get visibility, and after that I can do some showcase and be a brand for some be a ambassador for some brands. So, and he doesn't care about the rights. He doesn't care about all those music professions. So for me, the really, really, really important thing is artists and professionals need to be trained. They have to know the music business, and if they don't know that, we're still gonna have the same model business. We're still gonna look for the big audience and try to make some showcase, but we're not gonna really live with they're not gonna really live from the arts, because when someone is playing their video clip on trust, they don't get they don't get the money that they're supposed to have. When they put the music on Spotify, they don't get the money that they're supposed to have, because they don't know nothing about it. They just take the music, put on platforms, and make sure that people are listening. And when the people are listening, they are so happy. They say, they're listening what I'm doing, and they like it. So I'm gonna try now to have some showcase, to have them with me and enjoy my music. And is the most important thing. And what is so what is so difficult is when you try to organize some training to explain to the professional, to explain to artists how important it is to know the music business. They don't come to the training. For them, it's not important, and for them, it's not. They don't realize how important it is. So that's why when when we have some very interesting training, they don't come. And they have the same problem. Someone we cry about his height and say, I didn't see even one cent. I didn't even see 1 cent. I don't know who is taking my rights. I show my music on SASM, and it was not my name. It was named of someone else, and I don't know who is it, because they don't do what they have to do. So for me, they don't really live from the arts. They're just trying. They're just trying. What they get is not enough when you compare it to the talent that they have. And the solution is to be trained to the music professions. They have to know what's distribution. When I have my music and I'm gonna put it on those platforms, I have to get back something. When what is the publishing? When someone is using my music for films, for publicity and stuff like that, I have to get money back. What my producer is supposed to do when we sign a contract, why is the guy is supposed to respect, and me, what I have to do when I sign. They have to go to those. They have to go and see those who knows a bit about the music professions. And yes, be trained is the key. Otherwise, we're gonna stay on the same business model, try to have an audience, make some showcase, and try.
Thank you, Anicet. Marleyne, when Anicet was talking, I had the impression that he was talking to you because you are a singer, a poet, and everything. I want to ask direct this question. Do you live from your art in South Africa? Do you attend the training about your rights as an artist?
All right, so with me, I practically do live off it because I do quite a few things. And it starts off with the belief system. I feel like as much as other outside powers could come through and try and help you, but if you yourself don't believe it's possible, then nothing's going to happen. So with me, I've always said to myself, I believe so much in what I have to give the world. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know in which way, but it's going to happen. And when that belief system is there, it's almost as if the world and the universe begins to bring those things together. So I say for Africans and artists to live off their craft, they have to first believe that it's possible in the first place. You can never rise above your belief system. So even with myself, the only reason that right now I'm actually able to live off my craft is because I believe that. And as I think it's Daron said before, the structures now with people who are more stable, when they come in and they bring that structure, you're able to receive it because you believe that it's possible. So I feel like right now, Africans need to believe that I have something to give to the world and it is possible. No matter where I am, it is actually possible. And when you have that, I'm telling you, things begin to work in that way. You will never rise above your belief system. And so that's why even in my poetry and what I do, I try to create that and translate that energy. And with the poem that I did yesterday about Africans, I said, dear Africans, rise, rise. Don't look at the shadows. You're the sun. You know what I'm saying? Don't look at the fact that, okay, no, I'm in South Africa. Maybe I could have been, I don't know where else, and my poetry would have expanded. Look at where you are right now and what you can do. And I feel like that will slowly open the way. And so, yes, it's organizations like this that create that platform for people like us. And going back to it, yes, I do live off my craft. Mm-hmm. And that is also because of the fact that I believe that it's possible. And I also want to emphasize on the fact that I believe that someone's values attached to their purpose. And if we're looking at an artist and we say that I believe that I've been placed on this earth to be a voice to the voiceless, let's say. And because I understand that and I live in that purpose, that's where my value is. You know, the world will come and look for you. When you understand your value, when you understand the purpose that you have as a painter, as a photographer, you understand what you're giving to the world. You, an artist, you're the seed to the earth. And when you understand that, no, I'm a seed to the earth, the world will do those things. The world will come to you. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like right now, we need to work on the belief system of Africans themselves. Do Africans sit and say, no, it's actually possible for Africa to thrive? Because if we don't believe that, other places will come through. They'll be like, here's the solution. And we'll just be like, oh, okay. And then it becomes a thing of corruption can come through. And because there's no proper structure of belief that it is actually possible for me to excel in what I'm doing. So I would go back to that point of it's the belief system. Do you actually believe that it's possible? And I always say the fact that you are placed on this earth, it means you have something to give. And that is the most important thing to remember, the value attached to the fact that you have something to give. The world needs what's inside of you. And so, yeah, that's pretty much what I want to say about that. It's the belief structure.
Thank you very much. And also thank you to all of you, because the time is over since 20 minutes. I don't even know if you have enough time to take some question, or maybe we just left it like that. There was this question about Nollywood and the reproduction of the reality. That was a question for Kim. we'll do. I propose that we do like this. Each of you will take 1 second to give the last word, and maybe Kim will have the opportunity to answer this question about Nollywood and the reproduction of reality. I would like to start with Olivier, just also because we are in this third part about money and crowdfunding. Olivier, what will be then your final word in the whole discussion about art, reality, and business?
Okay. My final word about art and business is, like I said in my first talk, is we have to connect the two worlds. We have to be the creative, the visionary, the dreams maker, and we also have to win against the real world. And it will be hard because we'll have the dilemma and the paradox to know where is the limit, where will I become, like Kim says, someone who just want to be une flourish and and I think it's a great challenge that we have to take somehow. And I will say and insist on the fact that, like Daron said, that Africa have to build culture, and I will ask him to find and to try to get insight of the making of this structure in countries which did it, because I am pretty sure that you will see that behind the Ghanaian president doing great structure, there is one artist who made the lobbying by doing what I say, like he started to stop thinking as an artist and started to say, okay, my president will never think about it himself. I have to do the networking and everything in my power so that they think about it. And every time you see a structure, is rarely something a pure politician will think first. From my research, is even in Nigeria, a lot of what is happening in the startup tech industry where people are, oh, Nigeria is great. If you see the story is always about pioneers who started to work alone in the desert of their country too. And they have to fight. So they built the structure. They didn't wait for Jesus to bring them to them. And I know it was not your point, Daron, by the way. I know.
Thank you, Olivier.
That's my point. We are the cavalry. We are the cavalry. Everyone.
Thank you. Ytasha?
Yeah, I just want to say this has been amazing. I'm so glad to have shared with all of you your dynamic, and I look forward to continued conversations with everyone. And just to build on something that Marlena mentioned about imagining having these grander expectations, around our lives, understanding the value of our work, and continuing to kind of hold the vision high for the work that we're doing and building these connections. That's really essential, building, pushing past the stereotypes or the images that other people have put before us that have been barriers for us to connecting, that have become barriers, physical, mental, emotional, and otherwise sometimes, for creating these kinds of relationships that lend itself to smart partnerships and insights creatively. And so I just want to thank you all and thank, you are our grand moderator for the work that you're doing. And this is great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ytasha. Daron?
I just want to say thanks to everyone. Thank you guys for having me here. It was a pleasure. I think there's a lot of discussions to be had about how Africa would move forward and how creatives, in Africa would excel. I think the main point is solutions, because that's also my personal motto. It's just solutions. The excuses are a lot, about how this is not there and that is not there and that is not there. But that has been my motto. When things didn't work for me, I moved to a different place to make it work. Starting up something would always be, be a challenge, but then it always works out. And then I feel like we have to create solutions, and then we are able to create solutions for others, So right now in my life, now that I'm here, I'm trying to create spaces for more African artists to be able to exhibit in Berlin, because there is money for them, there's free money. They actually have it a lot. So these are the kind of things that I think that would help. So if I bring money into their pocket, they go back home and then they invest. So yeah, let's just think solutions and make things happen. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Daron. I remind the panelists that Kim asked whether we can share telephone number so that we can stay in touch. So kindly write your telephone number in the chat so that we can build this connection between us. And Kim, your last word.
So I guess I'll just start by answering the question that the guy put on YouTube. Thanks for the question. Yes, we should use Nollywood and whatever medium we have to tell it like it is, but we also need people to tell it like it can be. Marilyn said that we have to believe that we can have better, that we deserve better, that we are better. And that belief comes from being able to imagine a world that we didn't create yet. And so sometimes artists can show us examples of what it could be. If I guess we had what we needed to be sustainable as a community. So that's my answer to that question. And in terms of my final words, first and foremost, our organization every year hosts the Artisan Conference. I mentioned its trajectory earlier, from Ghana through Tanzania. And this year it is in South Africa. That's November 5th through the 8th in Johannesburg, and you are certainly all invited. I would love for you to be there. I'm gonna get your numbers so that I can send you formal invitations. Maybe I can cover the cost of your accommodation on the ground. Definitely take my number on WhatsApp. Let's stay connected. I have to get you guys involved because you're some of the brightest minds doing this work. And we wanna feature you on our platform this November. And last but not least, when you think about artist sustainability, in the Teaching Artists Institute, art is everything. It's not just the traditional art forms. It is everything that we have that we use in humanity to sustain our culture. And the culture is how we live and our behavior. And so I just want to remind you of that so that you can be more sustainable, because once you begin to integrate your art form into every area of society, you will be sustainable. If you're an artist in the classroom, if you're an artist at the Board of Estimates, if you're an artist in the government, if you're an artist in the science room or in the hospital doing healing and art therapy, if you stop trying to just do art by itself, as they've taught you that art should be done, art in the African worldview is everywhere in community. It's not just inside that museum where we go to see pictures or hear artists. It's not just on that concert stage. It's everywhere in community. So if you as an artist want to be sustainable, find a way to become bilingual and integrate your art into another sector of society. Again, my name is Kim Poole. I'm with the Teaching Artists Institute, and we would love to see you at our conference this November. Thank you again to this area of Germany, Bayreuth, Germany. Yes, thank you for your university, and your African Studies department is dope, and I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you, Kim. You already know if you need a moderator. Marleyne.
All right, so I want to say thank you so much. I really learned a lot from everyone, and I want to say let us continue the great work that we are doing, creating that belief system, and as artists, understanding the role and the influence that we have on the world. And my name is Marleyne Bandekele, and thank you so much. God bless you all.
Thank you. Anicet, you have the last word.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jeannot. Jeannot.
I say Jeannot, Jeannot.
Okay. Thank you, Jeannot. Thank you, Mira. Thank you to the university. Thank you to all of you guys. And what can I say? We have to write our own story, and we can do that with films, with our films, our music, our art. And let's continue. Let's try until we die. And yes, thank you very much for this panel. It was so interesting, and I have learned.
Yeah, thank you so much to all of you. That's the end of our so beautiful discussion. I think we will continue now in private. We will write, we will connect, we will invite people in Germany, in the US, in Cameroon, in South Africa, and everything. See you soon. Have a great day, great night.